Welcome to Revealing Conversations with Petra Nicoll, once again reporting to you from beautiful Woodland, Washington and the Louise River. Here today with a dear friend from England, Susie Briscoe. Susie, welcome to the show. I'm so excited. Your English accent, your British accent might rub off on me during the show.
You've got a beautiful accent, darling. Don't you change a thing. And hello, thank you so much for having me as your guest. I'm so excited.
Oh, it's such a pleasure to see you again. It's been way too long. The last time we met via Zoom was during the publication of Life Sparks.
And how long ago is that?
That was 4 years ago. Well, no, 6 years ago.
6 years ago, yeah.
You had a chapter. Hold on. I need to put my EMF glasses on.
Okay.
Your chapter was on page 15 called No More Excuses, Open Your Doors of Discovery.
Wow, that sounds good, doesn't it?
It does sound very good, and it was a fantastic story. So it was a compilation of different authors in here. We had, I think, 20 people or so. I had a chapter in here called Comatose, which is also in my memoir, Petra's Ashes, and that's how we met, was through a mutual friend of ours in Eugene. Tammy.
We were such a tight little group on that, you know. I remember it so well.
It was.
And one of the other girls in that book, Jean-Marie Farish.
Farish, yeah. Susie, could you turn your volume up slightly?
Oh, yes. Hang on. Let me do that.
I think it is just a tad low. And I know I perhaps have an echo.
Oh. I can't see how to do that. Hang on.
That's all right. Just get a little closer to the camera so we can see your beautiful face. In that way, it'll be louder.
I usually run away from that. I'm on my highest. I can't go any higher.
That's okay. That's okay.
Sorry,
just
darling.
come closer. Perhaps you can put the microphone a little closer to your mouth there. There you go.
Okay. Does that sound better?
A little bit. Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm going to read your bio because it is so impressive. I did not know this about you until you sent this to me. So I'm super pleased that I know those details about you. So Susie is an author and an international best-selling author, and her book, Color Your Legacy. She's also an associate international business and legacy mentor author, and also life coach. She has identified leading legacy work as a major part of her passion. This is about filling the gap, working with people who still have an empty feeling inside themselves for whatever reason, and finding a way to give back to the world whilst recognizing the importance of not wasting time as the clock continues to tick, not to click. Headhunted by the Nightingale Conan Corporation in 2008 and subsequently by Brian Tracy International to become their freelance master coach outside the US, Susie runs her international business whilst remaining actively involved in these charities: Action Medical Research for Children, the Battersea Dogs and Cats Home, the Church Homeless Trust, the Acer Foundation for Global Education and Welfare, which she founded. Susie says, "My main buzz is helping women entrepreneurs understand their life purpose in such a way as to live their legacy as they walk through their life, moving them from life of success to one of significance." That is beautiful.
Thank you so much. You read it so beautifully. Who was that you were talking about?
It's you. So Susie, well, of course, you know, the first question I had, I opened my eyes this morning at 4:30, which is usually the time I get up. And my first thought was, Okay, what's it like to live in England right now? How is this COVID-19 affecting everyone in England? Can you share just a little bit of what's going on in your life personally?
Yeah.
What's been happening?
Well, in my life personally, not a lot has changed actually, because I love my chair of power. I'm ribbed no end about it because that's where I prefer to sit. And I schedule events from my chair of power. I mean, big events in London, I used to, I don't do that anymore, to just coaching from my chair of power. Every now and then I go into my library and I take tea with different people, which is very, very civilized. But apart from that...
Civilized. Come a little closer to the screen, perhaps. I can see, I can hear you better that way. And I really want the audience to hear everything you say.
Okay.
I'll come closer too. So,
how's that? Is that okay? I look as though I'm eating you alive now. Ooh.
No, maybe I'm eating you alive. Yeah. So my British accent comes out, by the way, when I'm around British people, because I used to live in London, and my first exposure to British. Yeah.
I really wish that we'd known each other then. We could have had such fun.
I moved to London when I was 17 years old and left when I was 24. So I was married in London to a Persian student during the revolution. Oh, yeah. Right. Anyway, let's get back to you. So tell me about how your life hasn't really changed. You're doing all this.
I'm still, the one thing that has changed is that I don't have people coming to see me anymore. Mm-hmm. My daughter will not come within 12 feet of me. So she gets to the kitchen door, and that's the closest she comes to mm-hmm. where I'm sitting in my chair of power. And that's it. The postman comes, rings the bell, rushes off again, and makes sure that he's at least 12 feet away from me, leaving a parcel, if there is one, or pokes the letters through the door. My gardener comes, which is lovely. I'm spoiled, I know. I love having my gardener. She's wonderful. Tina, her name is. And she comes, and because she's outside and I'm inside, that's not such a big deal. We go, hello, from the window. But apart from that, nobody else is allowed in. And my daughter is absolutely paranoid about me getting any of this virus. I mean, her age group, I think, are the most aware of the problem. I suppose because they have parents older mm-hmm. and in that age range of danger. Mm-hmm. And then, I mean, even some of her colleagues are self-isolating within their homes, because if one of them is a key worker, then the other one goes separately and they live solo lives within their house. Mm-hmm. It is taken incredibly seriously here. Mm-hmm. And it's now getting a bit tedious, you know, to start with, it was a bit, you know, a bit of fun. Sort of, I honestly didn't take it as seriously as I should have done. I just thought, yeah, okay, we've been around this block before. And in truthfulness, we have. I mean, there was the 1918 Spanish flu, or thereabouts. Mm-hmm. And then when I was young, aged 11, there was, what flu did they call that? Asian flu. And I got that twice. Mm-hmm. 2 weeks home from school, went back to school, 1 week, and another 2 weeks home at school again, because the virus hit me again. And the second time it bites, it's worse. So I do understand the government wanting to keep everybody, but this is an extraordinary period in the whole of the world. If you think about it, can you even recollect a time when there was no country was open? All the airlines were closed down. All the borders were closed down. It's beyond I could never have believed this would happen. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So what do you think about it?
Well, I have a different opinion altogether.
Okay, go for it. Let's hear it.
I don't know if I can say that on camera.
Oh yeah, go for it, honey.
Oh my goodness. Well, first of all, coronavirus has been on the planet for a very, very long time. it has come out that people that have had the flu shot are more prone to getting it.
I had a flu shot only in December.
I think that it's that there's a lot of hype around it. I mean, I'm not saying it's not dangerous, and I'm not saying that one should not practice social distancing or wearing masks and so on. I personally feel that it is possible that we've all had it on some level.
Yeah.
I know I had a really strange thing happening right before the closing down of the economy and everything. I had a retreat here at this retreat center where I am at the moment. And 2 days after everyone left, and I had people fly in from all over the world. And 2 days after people left, my guests left, I had this very strange experience in the night where every muscle in my body ached. And in the morning when I got up, I just was able to make coffee. And then I slept literally for 8 hours straight. And then I got up and I was just fine. Just, yeah. And it felt like a flu symptoms or some symptom or some kind of virus. And some other people have reported similar things, you know. So
but it's like animals, though. If they don't know that they're ill, then they don't know, and so they just carry on.
Right.
Except I had one Airedale when I was little. Her name was Julie, Lady Julie of Ashley. So she thought she was wonderful. I thought she was too, actually. And she had a tumor on her front leg, sort of there. And it was quite large, and she had it removed. And then my parents had a shop, and one customer had suddenly came back in, and she was sitting in the back room of the shop and realized that she hadn't seen Jim, or more importantly, he had not seen her since she had the operation. Now forget that 10 minutes earlier she'd been dancing around in front of us. When she saw Jim and remembered all of this, she got up, limping down to make sure she get the sympathy vote. It was ridiculous. So they do know, they have a sense.
Well, so Susie, what have you been up to in the last 6 years since Life Sparks came out?
Wow. 6 years ago, what year was that?
I remember your partner passed away.
Oh, it's right. Okay, that date. He passed in 2015. So we were in touch pretty soon around then.
Yes.
That was a tough one because it happened so suddenly. And I mean, he literally said goodbye, went out of the door to drive to work. And when he came back, well, he didn't come back. 30 minutes after he left, I had the phone call from work saying he's collapsed on the floor and we're giving him CPR. I thought, great. I don't think you're supposed to tell me that you're giving him CPR over the telephone, but what do you do? So I waited for my son-in-law to come, and he drove me to where he worked. And we got there and it was too late, he'd passed. But it was what I found very interesting. I kept my act together, stiff upper lip kind of thing. I couldn't break down in front of the ambulance men, the policeman who was there because it was an unexpected death, the staff who were around, and my son-in-law. I mean, when I first walked in and saw him on the floor, my first instinct was to turn and run. I did not want to see what I'd just seen. But unfortunately, my son-in-law's shoulder was bang up against my nose when I turned. So I didn't have any choice. I had to go forward and I had to accept it and everything. So having got over that hurdle, I then became very matter of fact and just dealt with it. I did say my goodbyes to him. Interestingly enough though, Petra, when I kissed him goodbye, you know how when somebody is dead, we all believe that it's the end of, but it actually isn't quite. The sense of hearing is allegedly the last to go. how do we know? We don't know. But allegedly. And I spoke to him. And I saw his eyes flicker. Just on behind his eyelids, they flickered. And I thought, he knows I'm here. At a level, he knows I'm here. And that was really reassuring for me. But we got to the end of the year, and then it was the first Christmas without him, which was difficult. And then it got to be the first New Year's Eve without him. And then, of course, it was the first whole New Year's Day that he hadn't been in my life for 50 years. And that's an awfully long time. So when it came, I was thinking about this, and I was thinking, what can I do? You know, I've not been in this situation before. I don't know how you get over it, what you're supposed to do. And I've been telling myself that I would write a book. And so I gave myself permission to write my book. And that, I didn't realize it at the time. I said, I'll dedicate it to my husband, Albert. And by just saying that, it gave me the permission. Yes, this is all right to do it now because I'm doing it for Albert. And what I didn't realize, I would light my scented candle. I'd have my crystals all around me. And especially, I had a pyramid of crystal with all the different colors of the rainbow in it. And also an amber pyramid. Beautiful. And a Herkimer diamond crystal. And I set about writing it. And whilst I was writing, I decided I would play the sounds of nature. And I had the streams tinkling along and bubbling brooks. And then I thought, I want a bit more than that. I want bird song. So I got bird song. I had about 8 or 9 different tapes running, courtesy of iTunes, I don't know. They were running for 8 hours non-stop. And I had the ocean, I had thunderstorms, rain, all of it playing together. It was such a cacophony. And then I thought, I need chanting. So I got Tibetan Buddhist monks to chant. And this was the backdrop that allowed me to write my book. It just helped me so much. And when it was only recently, actually, this year, that I realized that what I was doing was my grieving process. It was what got me through. All of the music, it wasn't music. I have to take that one back because it was nature, just the sounds of nature, pure and simple. Getting back to Mother Earth, as it were. I mean, if I could have, I would have sat out in the garden barefoot, but I wouldn't have had all my other stuff around me, and certainly I wouldn't have been in my chair of comfort, my chair of power. So that was how I did it, and this is my book. Ta-da! I know, isn't it fun? That
is so beautiful. So that is loving to live your legacy.
And there is my late husband, bless him. I adore him. His name's Albert.
Albert.
Yay.
So let's send a blessing to Albert today.
That would be wonderful. Namaste.
Namaste. So, Susie, tell me a little bit about legacy.
Well, legacy, I fell into legacy work purely by chance. It was creeping up on me. You know, when you're coaching, I trained to coach. And because of the training for coaching and mentoring, I'm a qualified coach, supervisor of coaches and mentors and of professional coaches. And you start on your own journey. It's such a hackneyed word. I hate to use it, but I don't know of another one. It's a personal trek, shall we say. That's probably a better way of describing it, because it is rather up foothills and down dales. And sometimes it's rough going because of what you suddenly encounter. So all of this personal development was taking place. And I thrived on it. I mean, some of it was painful because it took you back to places you'd forgotten or didn't even know that you knew.
Yeah.
And all my life, the one thing that has stayed with me has been my charity work. That is the one thing that I've actually always thrived with. I started serious charity work volunteering. I'm not paid, and none of it was paid. When I was about 25, I suppose, doing events and the like. And then I got onto the boards of various, 2 national charities in England. And I was working with Action Medical Research, not as a board member, but because they were the ones that opened my eyes to the charity work, because I'd had so many miscarriages that I had Lara. She was my first child, and then I went on to have another 10 miscarriages after Lara. And they couldn't believe that I'd managed to carry a baby. I mean, I didn't get it a full term, and I did have to stay in bed. At 3 months, I was in bed, and then at 6 months onwards, I was in bed, and she was a prem baby at the end. But it was that charity that got me involved. And you always have to have a reason for wanting to get involved. You don't do it just because you're a nice person. Well, maybe some people do, but there's usually a tie-in that keeps you close to that charity. And that's what I find. And I'm an ambassador for them now. And I've retired from the other 2 boards, but one of them, the Battersea Dogs and Cats Home, they gave me, they created a scholarship in my name that is given every year in perpetuity. And it's called the Susie Briscoe Scholarship, which I am so proud of. You've got no idea. And that's about, it's international. And it's about sharing the knowledge that Battersea has learnt about animal welfare over their 160 years, coming up 160 years. So that I'm very proud of that. And then the other one, Church Housing Trust, Homeless Trust, they've changed their name. They asked me to become a patron. So again, I just feel so honoured, blessed. It's a privilege to be part of it. But that started me thinking much more broadly about charity work. And then the personal development side kicking in when I was doing the mentoring and the coaching side of things. And I thought, really, what is it all about? Everybody wants to strive to be the best they can be. But what's the why behind the why?
That's a very good question. What's the why behind the why? Yeah.
Absolutely. And it just hit me, you know, every day we are walking our own legacy. We don't know it and we don't realize it. I think one of the things for me, when I was married, I didn't work outside of the home. So I didn't need a CV anymore. And I very nearly tore it up. But something told me to hang on to it. This was a long time before computers. Something told me to hang on to it. And then when I was after I had Lara and I was at home, and she started at a little nursery school, and I'd already been invited into working with Action Medical Research, I started to think, I need to document this. So I created this thing that I call Life Notes. It's not a CD.
What?
Life Notes.
Life Notes.
Yeah. And I set it out a little bit like a CD, maybe. I mean, because I'm such a great age these days, it's about 14 pages long, and no CD should ever be more than 1, maybe 2 pages at the very most. But so I just kept a note of where I was doing, and I decided the best way for me to do it was I would band Battersea Dogs Home stuff under one heading, and then the Action Medical Research I'd get on another, and Church Homeless Trust. So they went in pages almost, and I created a new page for the new activity, and it just was so interesting. I didn't want to waste my time at home, which is so easily done if you're not careful. You drift. I mean, the one thing about having work, and I think this is why a lot of people have come unstuck this time at the moment with the COVID, is because they don't necessarily have to get up in the morning to go to work.
Oh, you know, that reminds me of something. I am sure that you have read the work of Napoleon Hill.
Oh, yes.
So did you see the book, Outwitting the Devil?
Yes, I haven't read it, but I have seen it on Amazon, yeah.
So you were just using the word drift?
Yes.
And he talks, he speaks in the book specifically about drifting.
Oh, really? I haven't read it yet.
You can get a download, a complimentary download on YouTube for Outwitting the Devil. It is one of the most brilliant books ever written.
Right, I'm going to look that up. Thank you.
Sorry, I had to throw that in the middle.
No, I think that's really interesting. I didn't realize that was the connection.
You absolutely tuned right in, because people are drifting. They are drifting.
Absolutely. And I think what I remember from my grandparents and then my parents, when my grandfather, because again, my grandmothers were of the age where they didn't work, they worked in the home. So life didn't change for them, no matter what age they were, it stayed the same. But when the grandfather retired, he lost his day. He lost his identity. He didn't have a reason to get up in the morning. He was made to by a very sturdy wife who said, come on. And he was kicked out of the house while she did the housework and got herself organized. Every day he had to come and walk up to see us. So I know that happened. And but he didn't have any purpose whatsoever. It ended, his purpose ended when he closed the door on work for the very last time. And he lived a year. And funnily enough, my father was exactly the same. He lived a year. And I just thought, there has to be more to it than this. So these were the things that were flying around in my little brain. And it suddenly struck me, as I said, we are walking our legacy every day. It's not when you get to the end of your life and somebody then reads out your will or your wishes, whatever you've left for people. And a solicitor in an office says, oh, Johnny over there gets £10,000 and Aunt Nellie gets 10 million and, you know, whatever. That is not what it's about. That's just money, and that's not really what's important. Money is useful and helpful, but it's really not important in terms of the impression that we make as we walk through our life, how we touch other people, and the impact that they have on us. It's an entwined thing. And so that is when I started working on living your legacy each day as you live it.
I love this. So what does your own legacy look like right now?
Right. Well, it's not finished yet.
Okay.
I have a body of work that I've done with each of the charities that it may not be concrete, but I know it's being built upon year, because we're all standing on somebody else's shoulders somewhere along the line.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You don't just start from here. You're standing on somebody's shoulders. You heard, you read, whatever, or you were brought up so many different ways, but you learn different things and you take them and process them into your own life. So I've got a body of stuff that technical words, you must recognize it, of stuff that I've done with action medical research. With Battersea, I've set up, well, I started to get them thinking about being international. And that was a long time ago. I started working with Battersea in 1989. And it was very different to the Battersea that it is today. They didn't have any branding at all. They didn't have a colour specific to their brand. They didn't do any fundraising. That was verboten. It was a rude word. Fundraising was never, ever done. I don't know how they survived as well as they did, but they did. They're amazing. It's the oldest animal shelter in the world for dogs and cats. So I know that, I started out by knowing that we were getting rid of a lot of kennels in Battersea, London. We've got 3 sites, Battersea. And the Battersea, London were getting rid of some of their kennels. And I knew of a kennel in the south of France. My dear neighbour, Neil, and his family, they'd been down to the south of France, and of course, lurking around and meeting people. They discovered this. And so he told me, and then I was able to put the 2 together. They needed kennels and we had kennels, so brilliant. It was easy. And the CEO at the time had come from the army. He was a lieutenant, nearly said lieutenant, I'm getting all American on you, lieutenant and lieutenant colonel. And so he knew how to organize all of that, no problem at all. So from that point of view, I felt that that was the first step on the road. And I wanted to broaden their horizons internationally. I was always looking beyond our scope. When we did the 150th anniversary event in London, I was chairman of that committee. I was invited to chair, a couple of years before we started thinking about it, and I was invited to chair all of the things, the events and things that were going to be put on around that. And when we did big gala evening with royals attending, we had press from Russia, from China, from everywhere. You would not credit it. This was, yes, it's the oldest dog institution in the world for animal shelter, but it's not really that big.
Interesting.
But the power of its name reverberates around the world and has done for many years. So I feel a little part of that with my international side kicking in. With the Church Homeless Trust, I started some thinking into friends groups. And we looked at that and we did start building that, and then there was a hiccup in it. And you have to depend on who's chairman at the time and who's the CEO at the time. So that was put on hold for a moment or two. But I do believe they've gone back to it now, which I hope they have. As a patron, you're not nearly so involved. You stand much back. I mean, you're supposed to stand back as a director, being a trustee. But you have to really stand back as a patron.
Yeah.
So, and then of course, I did the work. I set up a very small charity with a friend, and it was to help educate AIDS orphans and necessitous AIDS orphans and necessitous children around the world. And we first started out because my friend had a daughter who'd gone walkabout for her gap year and had met a Lua tribesman and fallen in love with him and decided to marry him, as you do. So that was quite an interesting moment in time, getting all of their heads around that. But I mean, they are a very outgoing and giving and inclusive family, so it really wasn't a big deal for them. But they had a spat. They have 2 children, and then they had a spat. And he played away while she came home to mummy. And unfortunately, things developed from that, not in a good health way. And he finally died, which was a terrible waste of talent. He was a very talented artist.
Oh.
And I can't remember his name now, shame on me, but his work was featured in the Nairobi Museum. So he was really, yes, noted and noteworthy. And so we started up this, my friend said, do you think, and I was waiting for her to say, will you help me? And finally she said, yes, would you help? I said, I've been waiting for, months now. Yes, of course I will. We can do all of this. So that was exciting. And we went out to Kenya, it's the village on Gata Rongai, and we met the children that we were helping and the orphanages that we were working with, as well as the school and the teachers that were involved, and obviously the head. He's now Bishop Kibobi, Jeremiah Kibobi, his name is. Lovely man, lovely family, wonderful. And when his Archbishop died, when I met him, he was just a vicar. I don't know, priest, whatever. I'm not very church orientated. I am spiritual, but I don't know all my stuff about churches. And so the gift from the Archbishop to Kibobi was that he created him a bishop and left him 3 more orphanages. Like you really need that like a hole in the head, You're starting with the 2 you've already got, and then you get 3. Wow, thank you.
Thank you. So how do you help other people lift their legacy, Susie?
I share with them what is possible for them. My clients come to me with this is how it started, because I didn't actually realize every time I was working with a client, it always came back to charity work at the end of the day. So with this particular client, she came to me with the idea of having she wanted to work with children at children's birthday parties and entertain them. And she got a set of vegetables named Uncle Turnip and Grandma Crunchy Carrot, and she'd named all the different vegetables and fruits in terms of members of the family, which the children loved. And her intention was that they should learn about the healthy foods and the not so healthy foods. Uncle Fried Potato, I don't know, all this sort of thing. Anyway, we were talking, and suddenly, I'm not quite sure how it got there, but she'd upped her game, and she was deciding that her husband worked at the embassy. She was Nigerian, and she was going to get 26 acres of Nigerian land, and they were gifting this to her, and she was going to have a fun fair like Orlando. Dream it big. Why not?
Why not?
And she started with me, we started looking at the different rights she could have to entertain these children and the ones who are not in home situations. Because, in Africa, you immediately can identify where those poor children are. But in more civilized countries, or more Western countries, more developed countries, they're not so easy to spot, but they're still there.
Yeah, it's hidden. It's hidden behind the clothes they wear and places. People are hidden away.
Exactly. So she decided that she would bring in some of the street children, for want of a better terminology, and that's what she was going to do. And then I suggested, well, couldn't you lay aside some land and create a home farm? Brilliant idea, because then we can get some of the kids to come and stay, from street kids to come and stay, suitably chaperoned and supervised, all above board. And they could learn husbandry of the land, how to till the land and how to husband the animals. And And it just kept on growing like topsy.
Oh, wonderful.
And that was really what set me recognizing that you don't know what your legacy is going to be.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
People just walk through their lives and suddenly she's got this massive plan that she's going to do. And then I thought back over different clients and it was so easy to see that it was all coming together like that. So that's when I went into legacy and that's how I helped my clients. Just open the doors for them.
That's marvelous. So how do you, tell me about this upcoming book, Ascension to Legacy. So you're in the middle of writing this, I understand?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
And I had a download this morning, honest to God. Petra, we need to speak offline about this really. I got, you know how you work from your adult self?
Yes.
And then you've got a controlling parent and enabling parent.
Yes.
And then you've got the three types of children, I can't think that that's the right word, but we'll call it obliging child, the natural child in the middle, and the rebellious child off to the right.
There's a sort of like archetypes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
And the whole point, you've got yourself in the middle, a big circle that says adult in the middle. And that is where you always want to be working from. So if you have, for example, if something goes wrong in your world, you go, don't like this, but you can't quite understand why. If you look at your values, you'll work out which toe they stood on. I mean, you know what I mean? If somebody does stand on your toe, you're going to go, ow. You recognize the pain is coming from that stamp on the toe. Yeah. But when it's the values that are being trampled on, it's not quite so easy to recognize unless you actually know your values. So taking one value, loyalty, is one of my highest values, possibly my highest. I'm not so sure. They kind of, there's the top three that float around. But the opposite of loyalty is betrayal. So if you feel betrayed, that's the equivalent of somebody stamping on my big toe with a great big iron boot. And, you know, ouch. Ouch and rude words, you know. So I think it's important that you know what your values are. So I've forgotten what question you asked me. I go off a tangent.
The question I asked you and it was, tell me about your upcoming book, Ascension to Legacy.
Yeah.
I mean, I love, you know, I'm really into Carl Gustav Jung and Carolyn Myss and archetypes. And so I do readings with cards for the archetypes.
Well,
so
you'll get
to figure out what archetypes are actually dominating their life.
Well, you can't see the writing on it, but it's this long.
There's a little bit too much light, but it's so fascinating because, and you're right when you say, you know, a lot of times people float or drift. There's that word drift again. If you're a drifter and you're drifting through life and whatever the universe throws at you, you're sort of dodging the bullets or the spears or whatever they look like. But if you become a conscious co-creator of the divine plan and you take what comes, you already know what is coming because you're no longer drifting and your awareness is heightened, then you can deal with situations, good or bad, much better.
That's right.
So one of the things you know, and we both, your coaching is phenomenal. And, you know, you've been a coach for such a long time, Susie, and you're helping thousands and thousands of people. And you've done so much in your life to help improve the planet. And, you know, and so what I would like to see is to bring you here to the United States and to retreat and
well, that would be awesome. If we combined our talents.
That would be marvelous. I would really enjoy this.
OMG, that would be amazing. Oh, well, at the moment, I'm struggling with this because the circles that I was just talking about, the archetypes. I had a download this morning that says there's more to it than that. And now I'm struggling to put values, beliefs, life purpose, and goals into the archetypes that we just talked about and see how they fit and where you get to be to the rishis, the sage age. Because as you mature, you can't help but gain more wisdom. I mean, you've been alive for longer, so you can't help it. It's just what happens. And so if I think back to my 40-year-old self, and I'm embarrassed to tell you, I was in a group meeting. I was in my, I don't know, late 30s, early 40s maybe, a long time ago. And in this group, I was asked to write down something that I liked about myself. So I thought, well, my eyes aren't too bad. Got nice brown eyes-ish. So I wrote them down. Yes. Now you tell me, what were they looking for? Not that.
Not that.
Oh, it was just, I felt so stupid. Thank God I wasn't the first one picked upon. Because I was about the fourth or fifth one around. And I started to think, oh, quickly, what am I going to say? I don't know what I said, but I didn't say brown eyes. I got away with something else. But I've really got into it now. And it's a wonderful exploration of self. But taking the ego out of self now is where I am. And I've just read a wonderful book by Wayne Dyer, Wishes Fulfilled. Have you read that?
I have read it, yes.
And it came into my life at the right moment. We were in a mastermind group, and one of the groups said, I was talking about whatever. And she said, Susie, you've got to read this book. This is exactly speaking to what you're saying now. So I read it last weekend, actually. And it was just magical. And how you let go of ego. Very important.
Well, I love the fact that we have, Wayne Dyer, I had the great pleasure of meeting him and seeing him personally. And we miss him very much. But I was thinking the other day, we need to create, what is it called? They did this with Michael Jackson, where they had a lot of pictures, a virtual reality sort of imagery, and superimpose him into classrooms. Those are the things we should be teaching in the classrooms.
Absolutely.
Children learning from people like Wayne Dyer, or
absolutely.
You had contact with Brian Tracy. I adore Brian Tracy.
Yes. I was very, very fortunate.
Very, very lucky. So how did they find you? How was that experience, Susie, when you were headhunted by Nightingale College? My God, that is just such a privilege.
It was ridiculous. I didn't even know who they were. We ought to share with the audience that they are, in fact, the granddaddies of the personal development business.
Yeah.
Because they set up their company back in 1960. And I don't know whether it was in Chicago back then, but their headquarters is in Chicago now. And what happened was, when I was mentoring at the college, I trained, and then I was used as a mentor and a coaching supervisor within the college, which was wonderful practice for me. And, well, that sounds wrong, doesn't it? Because I was coming from a place of qualification. But it gave me the experience of working with quite a few students. And the college decided they would put on a health seminar in London. And because my doctor had said, great, you come and coach in my surgery, I'll let you have a room there. She was very forward thinking. I wish all doctors were like that. And she said, we've got a lot of army people just down the road here, and they need help. And it's help that they can't get from elsewhere. because you dig deep inside yourself just to help yourself. And I'm telling you, you know. So I was talking with Irani, Iraqi, Afghanistani former soldiers or soldiers who've been fighting in those countries. And because of that, when we were doing the seminar, the newspapers were invited to attend, and in England. And I was one of the ones that was chosen to be interviewed because not many of the coaches had health experience. So I got to be interviewed by the Telegraph. Now, you know, that's a very classic English paper.
Yes.
Up there with Times. And then I got interviewed in their Sunday supplement and in the Mail supplement, the Daily Mail, the Sunday Mail supplement. And then I was interviewed by Psychologist magazine. And then, who else? I can't think. But anyway, because of that, it upped my visibility, I suppose is the word. And that's how Nightingale came to find me. So I was
beautiful. So
really?
did you get to meet Brian Tracy?
No, they always told me he's too busy sunning himself down in California. I said his skin must be like leather by now, but he's amazing because he's still touring.
Yeah,
I mean, he was over in Russia and China last year. Remarkable, really.
What do you think, a little bit sideways from our conversation, but what do you think about the coronavirus being linked to China, to the Wuhan lab being man-made? What do you think?
Speaking my language, darling, I really believe it could easily, let us not say out loud that we think it could have been done on purpose, because that would be a terrible thing to think. But it had to escape somehow and somewhere. And the fact that they had army personnel over there in their laboratory. And it goes back to the 1960s. It's a collaboration between them. And the Wuhan laboratory and the army isn't just recent, it goes back to the 1960s. It's quite, I better not say any more than that. I might end up in a lockdown of a different kind.
So, and my next question would be, because you're British, what do you think of Harry and Meghan eloping and moving to the United States?
He's still my baby boy.
Oh.
I don't know. I think it's sad. I really feel for Harry. I think he is emotionally compromised. I think he was in a weak position. I don't know what had been going on in his personal life. Who does know except himself? And I think he was at an all-time low. And I think he had a breakdown of some kind. Possibly when he was thinking of becoming a father during that pregnancy. I don't know. But it must have brought everything back for him. And it's difficult. And I think he's almost burnt his boats.
He's almost what?
Burnt his boats.
Oh, you know, I have a little bit of a different opinion. Do you want to hear it?
Oh, let's hear it. I love this. Go on, Petra.
Okay, so being European, growing up in Germany, you know,
I know.
I don't have royals anymore, but living in London for 7 or 8 years. So I worked on Fleet Street.
Yeah.
Aristocrats and attorneys. I was working as a translator for some years. And so my feeling about this is positive for Harry and the family, for him to actually experience a different reality is necessary for him to be a better leader.
Well, he doesn't look happy at the moment.
Well, I think he's going to become a much, much better leader in terms of what he will identify as necessary. I mean, you're not just born by accident into a position where he is. I mean, things are planned out, you know, it's not a coincidence. And what they've gone through with their mother, you know, and all of that story. So I think that this is actually a moment for him to really find his truth and dig deep into his soul of what he wants to do with the rest of his life.
I don't disagree with you in actual fact, but I'm coming at it from a particularly personal point of view as he's a boy. When he married Megan, when it was first announced, I could not have been happier. I thought, wow, this is real progress. This is going to be such an amazing thing for the royal family to have not just a foreign lady coming and marrying one of our princes, but to have an actress. I thought she's going to cope easily with all the spotlight, plus the fact that she was already into all of her charity work and diplomatic stuff. I thought she was born to the role. What could be better?
Well, she's not a Grace, Princess of Monaco. It's a different time. Different time. If this had been 50 years ago, you know, she would have remained because the rules would have been different.
Yes, but I don't mind that they're breaking a few rules. I don't mind that. Mm-hmm. I just want him to be happy, and at the moment he's not looking happy.
Why do you think he doesn't look happy? I thought he was very happy.
I think, well, smack my wrist now, if you will. But I go onto a site called Quora.
What is it called?
Quora, Q-U-R-A, Quora.
Quora.
All of the twaddle that is written on there would make your hair stand on end before it fell out. And they have inane questions and everything else. But if you can part your way through all of that grimness, you sometimes get a spark of reality coming through. Mm. And I see quite a few pictures of him where he's not looking that happy. And then, of course, you get all of everybody's aunt and uncle got their opinions.
Yeah, but you don't know what's doctored. I mean, people could take you or me or anyone really and make you look completely ridiculous and unhappy and catch you in a moment when you're not prepared for the camera. I mean,
it's not difficult. I honestly rise to it every time.
Trust anything we see in the media. We cannot trust anything we see in the media.
Which is true.
Yeah. So Susie.
May I go back before we end? I wanted to go back and tell you a little bit more about the Ascension to Legacy book that I'm writing.
Yes.
Because what I'm doing in this first book, I look at the chakras, all the different chakras, and I align the crystals to it. Oh, you couldn't see it. I was going through the page. It doesn't matter. It's crystals aligned with chakras, aligned with oils and flowers. And I've got all of that in that book. But I wanted to go deeper with this one, and I wanted to align the chakras with Maslow's hierarchy of human needs. And I know you're going to be familiar with that.
Really?
And that has been fascinating. And I was quite content with that. I was, bubbling along, and I thought I was nearly finished. And then this morning I got this download about, hang on a second. And I'm now struggling. You can't see all of my scribbles on this piece of paper about how I want to present aligning the chakras with the beliefs, with the values, all included in the actualization of the archetype. I mean, it's a nightmare trying to pull it all together. I don't know how I'm going to do it.
Well, it's such fascinating work because, when we're speaking archetypes and we're speaking in this century right now, where there's so much manipulation through the media going on.
Yeah, that's what we were talking about as well.
The values of the family are breaking down and they're becoming the values this socialization, of this program, of this crazy program that comes via your television screen, or your computer, or your iPhone.
I know.
These are not values anymore.
No, I don't really believe they know what values are, actually. Exactly. I had a class in Guildford College, but it was the hairdressing college that was connected to the Surrey University. And I went through values and beliefs with their senior girl. They were about 17 years old, going on 18. They didn't have an idea to start with. And I thought I was going to breathe in and just talk to them as adults. Whoa, rein it back. I had to really start at the beginning. Not their fault. Nobody had told them or shown them, or people. I think parents are all busy working. Mothers used to be more at home. I would imagine your experience of a mother was at home, wasn't it?
Oh, no, my mother was a businesswoman.
Okay. I didn't know that.
And she used to tell me every morning when we had coffee together. I know I started drinking coffee when I was 10, I think.
I'm spinning in different directions.
I had to be on a speedier train than most people because my mother passed away when I was 16, so I only had her for a very short time. But she used to tell me, she said, never depend on a man.
Not a bad lesson in life. Yeah.
I wonder where that came from. You know, she was born in 1939, right at the onset of the Second World War. You know, Hitler rode through our town, and people had to, you know, salute Hitler riding through the town. So.
And you were saying her arm wasn't strong enough to hold a proper salute.
You read my book. I love you. Oh my God.
Remember that? Yeah.
Petra's Ashes.
Of course.
That's so sweet.
Yeah.
Oh.
But it's funny what sticks in your mind, isn't it? Something as simple as that would have impacted her enormously. My husband was born in 1939.
Ah.
So I know what it's like. He was 8 years older than me, but I'm still considered elderly. I don't feel it, but I'm considered. When you took me on your ski run this morning, I just loved it. It wasn't this morning, actually, was it? You filmed it yesterday.
I was on the mountain. You had to sit by the computer 24 hours prior to going, and you have to click right on the dot at 9 a.m. and fill out the form in 10 seconds, or you didn't get a ticket because they are only allowing 200 people on the mountain. And then you had to hike up where the snow was for half a mile with your skis and boots.
That's back to the 1930s.
There was one moment where I thought, what am I doing here? This is crazy. This is totally crazy. But I added another video this morning for a few months ago. There was a lot of snow, and my friend Punsak, who incidentally was a Tibetan monk, and he was a skier. So he was skiing behind me, filming me. So I posted it because it was a really good ski run.
It was a good run. It was a very good run. I saw that one.
And I found people really like to see that space continuum, you know, when you're in it and you're feeling you're going down the mountain. Susie, I'm very excited. So tell me about your book. When is the release date? Ascension to Legacy. When are you thinking of getting this out?
August the 31st. That's when my publisher says it's coming out. It's a long way off still, but she knows what I'm like. And it's like giving birth, you know. The last time when I was doing this Color Your Legacy book, she said to me, Susie, are we going to have to use forceps? And then eventually she said, I think this is going to be an OR job. I think it's going to be an emergency cesarean at the end of the day. So she's given me space and time, the continuum, like the word. And of course, the reason I like that date as well, we were married, Albert and I were married on August the 30th of 1970.
Aw.
So you would have been 9 years old.
That's right. I would have
I
been
know.
9 years old.
And that is 50 years ago this year. So it's our 50th wedding anniversary.
Aww.
He doesn't get off the hook just because he died. Oh no, he thinks he's going to escape that easily.
Well, I have a feeling he's standing next to you right now, listening to this conversation.
He's already bought me. He doesn't know it, obviously, but he has already selected a beautiful, beautiful wedding anniversary present for me for my 50th anniversary. Isn't that clever of him? I wonder how he managed that.
Well, there is no death, is there?
There is no death. And that's what I hope to explain in this Ascension to Legacy. We just go on to a different place.
Well, perhaps with this quarantine, the few good things that have happened is that the air is cleaner. We can see the Himalayan mountains. Los Angeles smog is down.
I know.
Families have to talk to each other perhaps a little bit more because they can't be on their cell phones 14 hours straight.
I'm amazed there haven't been more murders, actually.
Oh, I'm sure it hasn't come out yet of how really bad it is. I do have a friend who is a grief worker, and she said that suicide rates are way up. It's kind of crazy. And
that's so sad. But if people are trapped in a 20th story of a block of flats, I mean, it must be grim.
It must be grim. Yeah, and the latest we hear about Los Angeles mayor telling people they can't get to the beach until the end of July. That is definitely a recipe for massive riots.
Oh, yeah.
The people are not
I was out in Los Angeles in February, early February. And when I woke up on my first morning there, I thought, oh, this is a funny looking little garden. I didn't realize when the smog lifted, I could see a completely different vista. I hadn't seen the trees that were in the garden and the paddocks beyond and the lake and everything else, let alone the other side of the valley with the mountains stretching beyond. I didn't know any of that was there. It was so dense in my, right up close.
Incredible.
Unbelievable. So I do agree with you. I think this is going to be, the world is going to be very different as a result of this.
Well, people are waking up and becoming more conscious. By the way, do you know of a medium in England by the name of Louis Jones?
Louis, L-O-U-I-S?
Yes. No, L-O-U-I-S-E, Jones.
Oh, okay. No.
And she has a YouTube channel. And I actually have a reading with her on Friday.
Oh!
I will inform you of the result of that because I'm very excited to get a reading. She has a massive following and she's extremely talented, to say the least.
I'm looking forward to hearing that. I hope you're interviewing her as well.
I hope she would agree to it. I mean, that would be tremendous. To have an interview with her as well. But so your book will be released August. You will let us know and we can do another
I will.
The book. I'm very excited about this book because I have not seen anything even close to that idea to combine archetypes and color and oils and essential, flower remedies and all the other things together. Crystal.
I hope I haven't bitten off more than I can chew, but it's what's come to me. You can only go with what you think is right.
Oh, the Germans, Time Waver, by the way, which has the best biofeedback device on the planet.
Yeah.
It just came out with a little biofeedback device where you can now run frequencies to anyone in your family. It's like a little tiny device that you can clip on and go about your business in your kitchen and run frequency on balance or healing or whatever you want. So, we are moving forward. So people are realizing that there are energy bodies and that they're affected by energy. Especially now when you're in lockdown, you're realizing, oh my God, I'm being affected by the energy of being inside all the time. that is bringing down my immune system. I need to go for a walk. I need to get fresh air. I can't tell you how much it meant to me yesterday just to be in the mountain.
Oh,
to breathe.
And it meant so much to me to be with you. When I saw the film clip, it was wonderful. But did I ever tell you that I healed a horse once?
Oh, do tell. Do tell.
He was a bay color. Are you familiar with horses?
A little bit.
So you know the bay color is like a brownish red kind of a color. Mm-hmm. And his name was, what was his name? He was a lovely old boy. He could be cantankerous. He wasn't mine. He was a friend's neighbor's daughter, owned him. And he'd gone lame to the point where the vet said the kindest thing would be to put him down. But the owner, she was only a young girl, just in her 20s, she said, no, I'm not doing that. He's not, no. Mm. So he said, well, you'll never be able to ride him again. Just won't happen. Got to keep him stabled, and we'll go from there. So every evening, one of them, either mother, father, or owner, daughter, would walk him down the drive from the stable and then back up again. And he was hobbling like mad. This particular day, I went over with the intention, pure intention, of giving him some healing. And she said, oh, be careful, you can't lie, because I went right underneath him. First of all, I felt where I felt the pain was, where the problem was. It was sort of x-ray with my hands. And it wasn't where the vet had said it was. And I said, no, I think it's coming from up here. Mm. She said, well, okay, go with it. So I then decided I needed to, in order to do what I needed to do, I needed to get a bit more underneath it. And she was worried that he would either kick me or stand on me or whatever. And I said, no, he's not going to do that. Of course he's not going to do that. He knows I'm here to help him. It didn't even occur to me that he would do anything remotely damaging to me. Mm-hmm. I started working on him, and suddenly I hear her gasp. She can see what I can see, but it's not very often that that happens. Mm-hmm. The area around where I was working on him, with this bay colouring, brownish red, it had gone a silvery pink, completely beautiful silvery pink. And it stayed like that for the duration of the healing. She said, does that happen often? I said, oh, yes, it's quite normal. You know, I didn't say it's very unusual for you to be able to see it. But anyway, that night, her father, who was a terrific cynic about all things healing, in healing mode, he took him for his nighttime walk, and he went in and said to his wife and daughter, well, you know, I think he's walking a bit easier. So this went on, and the following week, the vet came. I had gone again. He'd had 2 treatments from me by now. I did one. So let's say I went on a Monday, and then I went the following Monday, and the vet came on the Tuesday. And the vet said, well, I certainly don't believe in any of this nonsense. However, you may let him out into the field tomorrow. And there is a possibility, well, I don't really wish to be held to this, but he looks as though he might be all right. And she ended up being able to ride him again. Isn't that amazing?
That's extraordinary. Power of healing.
Absolutely. The power of what we don't know we can do.
Exactly.
Tune in and turn on.
Oh. I am so happy you were able to help that horse.
Me too.
That the owner didn't put that horse down.
Oh no, she loved him. She absolutely loved him.
Oh. Well, Susie, thank you for being
it's been a pleasure
with us together, and I hope, well, for you it's now evening, isn't it? It's Sunday at 7 p.m. or something. What time is it?
Coming up to 6:30.
Oh, okay. All right. So you're almost going to sleep.
No, not at 6:30 in the evening.
Are you a night owl?
I stay up. I do stay up, yeah.
Good for you.
I get some of my best work done when everybody else has gone to sleep, you know.
Yeah, I can't work so much at night. I have to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm more of the morning person, writer. So, but
my publisher is a bit like you. She goes to bed at about 6 o'clock in order to get up at 12 o'clock, because then she says she's got a good 6 hours before anybody outside of her own realm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I relate to that. I relate to that. I love the early morning. There's nothing better than the early morning. I should be meditating, but sometimes I'm just working.
Should is not a word. We don't do should. I look forward to seeing more.
I had enough shoulds when I was on the path of the master. We had a lot of shoulds. You have to get up and meditate for 3 hours minimum every day in the morning.
That's a lot.
Well, I used to do 11 hours or so a day, but that was a different life.
That was a different life.
Lived like a monk, or it was like a monastery, you know. But it was very good, very good.
Enjoyable.
Well, difficult living in a monastery type environment. Difficult but rewarding, and especially later in life, the appreciation that I have now for that life that I had then is grown a lot more. And I am eternally grateful to my guru for teaching me all the things he taught.
Wonderful. So, I'm going to look forward to speaking to you when I have the honor of interviewing you.
So that will be next week.
I know, isn't it exciting?
Super excited. And keep it in your mind, Susie, of when you can come to the United States once all this clears and we can fly. And go about our business. So we need to get together and play.
That would be awesome. That would just be wonderful.
So Susie, before we close, can you share quickly your website and how people can get a hold of you if they would like some coaching or? Yes,
most certainly. They can get, my website is www. which we all know, Acer, as in the tree, ACER, coachingassociates.com. Very straightforward. I've got Facebook pages, Susie Briscoe Mentoring, but I would really love it if your group would honor me with joining me in my Facebook group, and that is called Mentoring for Legacy. I'd really love them to join me there.
I'll make sure to put all that information on the bottom of the page so people can.
Thank you so much. That's wonderful.
Well, and thank you for this amazing interview. I can't tell you what a pleasure it is to know you, and I hope to see you in person and give you a big hug.
Oh, so nice. That's what I'm missing, the hug.
I'll hug you. Much love to you, Susie.
And you too, Petra. God bless.
God bless. Bye-bye.